So I've got some fairly wide painter's tape. I'm just going to lay a couple strips on here to protect the glass, and then probably take some measurements. Now I know that this is going to back up a ways, so I'm going to lay down a second one, and I'm trying to think ahead a little bit here, but what I would like to do, to be doubly sure everything lines up, is I'm going to put down the second row, but I know when this comes back that I may need to remove some of this tape, so my intention here, I'm going to put a second row across, just about up against the first one, but not over it. And I'm going to make a reference mark for how far back I think the lid needs to move. If I come over here to try to understand how far out it is, from the farthest back tip to the farthest back tip of the extension, yeah, it's 400 to 420. I guess I'll add 2 inches. Okay. That way if I have to take off a piece of tape, I won't lose my measurement. So let's go 410. I'm going to lock it down here so I don't lose the 410. And I'm going to measure at the edge of the, right there, at the edge of the molding. So 410 is what 400 is what I want to take out. So when I come back, my reference point should be 2 inches. This should move back up, and I should be 2 inches off that position. It's really hard to get an exact measurement. That's 490, that's a ½ inch. So if I come over here, and I go 2.490, measure from the edge of the deck lid, goes right to here. So when I go back together, I ought to be able to peel this piece of tape out. I ought to be able to position this so that I'm 2 inches away here and 2 inches away on the other side, and I should be very, very, very close. In looking at the book, the factory manual, they talk about when you install this, to put everything in place, the gaskets and sealers, and get it close, and then set it down, and then make your final adjustments, and then go inside the car and tighten the fasteners. It appears that if you get that close and you need to scooch this by 1/8 of an inch, while the screws are loose, you ought to be able to move it and the butyl seals will move. I didn't really like the precision of using a dial caliper for that because it was kind of walking around. So I thought I'd come back one more time just with a steel rule and see if I could get a better measurement. Because the flat side of this will hold square, and then I can go right up against. It looks like the gap is just over 3/8 of an inch. And it's basically, yeah, that's right on 3/8 of an inch, would be 375, and I think I said 400 before, which is pretty close. So what I want to do is I said 2 inches plus that amount, plus 375. Let me just double check and see if I got a decent measurement here. Yeah, it's about a 32nd. So that's pretty close actually. It's just a little longer. And then my biggest concern is getting it set and having it creep back a little ways, but yeah, measured that way at 7/16. So if I go from the end, it's 2 inches. That's 2 inches and 7/16. And actually, my line is in between 7/16 and a half inch, so the front edge of the line is correct. Now it's about time to go take those bolts out, jack the back end up, and take the bolts out. Well, now it's time to get that bracket off. I've been measured. This takes a 13 millimeter socket. And just looking at it, I think I probably want to do the end ones first and end up in the middle so that it is easier to handle as it comes apart. So, nut and a washer, it comes off together. Number 2. Alright. I want to be gentle. It doesn't want to come off. It's loose at the ends. It doesn't want to come off in the middle. Not sure why quite yet. It sort of feels like it's glued in, which it could be. But it does not want to come off the threads of this bolt right here. Maybe it's just alignment. Nothing seems to be glued. It's just getting it off the bolts. Okay, got that one. There we go. Got it. Oopsie daisy. To fish some of these things out, I guess. There's a number of 1, 2, 3, 4. There are a number of nylon washers that came off and need to go, like spacers that will need to go back on. But what you can see, this is what the underside looks like. So there are the bolts, but you can see that the bolts that are through the glass are essentially all the way to the back of. Sorry, I gotta get this in the right place. They're to the all the way back of these huge holes that are in the window. So the deck has basically come, it's not quite actually all the way to the back of the glass, but it's pretty darn close. And I would also say is there are a couple of, there are some additional spacers up in here that it looks like a spacer that we'll have to keep track of also. Now then, I need to get a screwdriver and I need to take these screws out that are in the side moldings on both sides. And once that's done, then I should be able to try to get it freed from the glass. So I've removed the 4 Phillips screws, the 2 from this molding on both sides. And that molding, that's kind of a mystery to me. In order for those to have stayed in the holes and have this lid move back a ½ inch, these black moldings have either had to move or stretch over the years. There's a little bit of a gap up at the top of the window. I almost wonder if they've been creeping. But I think the way this works is we put it back to where it needs to be and then drill new holes and just accept that the bracket will be where it is. Into the... So these go in, so these washers, there's a flat side and there's a side with a raised bump on it. And I thought, based on just looking at them, that they went in this way with the flat side up. But it appears that's not the case. This one I just took off, and the flange, or the, I guess you call it a flange, goes up into the window, and that space, that little bit, is all the spacing that was keeping that deck lid from going further back. It was the bolts were shifted back until it got to the edge of that lip. Again, I don't think you want to pry too hard on this, because you don't want to break the glass. And if you lift on the end or push down on the end too hard, that puts an awful lot of stress on it. It's designed to be picked up by all the bolts. So let me get a look-see in here. Yeah, I can see the foam strip that's in here is breaking loose, at least over here. What I should probably start with, I should go find, I have a plastic scraper, and I should probably start with that. I don't want this panel to fall on the floor, so we've got to be gentle. I have a whole selection of putty knives and scrapers and things, but I tend to start with one of these plastic ones because they're fairly sharp, yet they don't scratch. So for a first approximation, they're not a bad way to start. So I'm going to try to get under here. Just loosen this. Loosen this foam strip. And we'll look at the height of this. The glass to the bottom of the sheet metal looks like it's 3/16, less than a ¼ inch. The foam strip that I bought is 5/16. That was the thickest I could get without a special order. So I was hoping that it would match up. Okay. Now in this corner, the foam wasn't adhered hardly at all. In fact, I don't think, looking from the dirt, I think the foam had given up long ago. When I get it off of here, I want to take a hard look at the foam and see how it's laid out before I get it too far, too far destroyed. Same thing seems to be true on this end, but the foam isn't contacting anything. And that might be the design, is that the foam was meant to channel water to the sides, and then it just rolls off. Rock that in there. Feels like I'm making headway with it. Getting more and more daylight under here. can feel I'm getting into the butyl, so. Okay, well, it's starting to come loose. I don't know if it's loose yet. Keep trying to break the sealing. There we go. Kind of doing a combination of cutting through the sealant with the knife and lifting or dropping it a little bit to work it up and down and back and forth. That's it. Got it off.